Zohran Mamdani just fired the opening shot in what looks like a full-blown class war between Democratic socialists and New York's super rich. Right? It is dramatic, it is intense, and whatever the outcome, one thing's certain, someone is going to win and someone is going to lose. But first, to actually understand how we got here, we got to go back a couple of weeks to the moment that Mamdani dropped this bomb.
I will be blunt. New York City is facing a serious fiscal crisis. There is a massive fiscal deficit in our city's budget to the tune of at least $12 billion. This crisis has a name and a chief architect. This is the Adams budget crisis.
Now, for some context, I'm going to explain real quick how this all works. As mayor, you're required by law to balance the budget, which means making sure that revenue and expenses equal out. Thing is, though, you don't actually know exactly how much your expenses are going to end up totaling until you get the bill. So you just kind of have to guess how much they'll cost, which introduces a certain degree of honesty that New Yorkers have to count on from their mayor about the future. And Eric Adams, he was not exactly famous for his honesty. And in fact, Mamdani, he claims that Adams intentionally, dramatically, and systematically under-budgeted city services, or in other words, their projected actual cost was far higher than the numbers that he used. So that means that Adams could technically meet the legal requirement to balance the budget, and it would only turn out to be unbalanced later on, by which time it would then be the next administration's mess to clean up, and here we are with one very big mess.
For reference, the budget gaps we are facing today are higher than they were at the height of the Great Recession.
But also Mamdani says that Adams isn't the only one you have to blame, right? Because Andrew Cuomo also dug this hole during his decade as governor, right? Alleging that Cuomo extracted city resources to shore up state-level finances while withholding revenue from the city. So that as a result,
New Yorkers contribute 54.5% of state revenue and receive only 40.5% back. In fiscal year 2022, New York City sent $68.8 billion in revenue to Albany and received $47.6 billion back.
But regardless of who's to blame, you have Mamdani saying that he's whittled down that $12 billion deficit substantially, right? Explaining that by finding savings in the budget, updating revenue estimates, and drawing down in-year reserves, he got it down to $7 billion. And then you had Governor Kathy Hochul pitching in another $1.5 billion in aid from the state, putting the final deficit at around $5.4 billion. And so that bomb, it's definitely way smaller than the one he initially dropped, but it's still gonna make a big boom. And so now the way that Mamdani presents it is that there are two paths forward. Either Hochul and the state legislature in Albany raise income taxes by 2% on New York's 33,000 wealthiest residents who make over $1 million a year, raise corporate taxes as well, and stop the drain on city resources to the state. Or if they refuse, then he'll have no other choice but to raise taxes himself, except it won't be income taxes that go up, but rather property taxes. And Mamdani was direct here. He said this option, it wouldn't just hit the richest of the rich.
This would effectively be a tax on working and middle-class New Yorkers who have a median income of $122,000.
So that's a 9.5% tax hike on over 3 million single-family homes, co-ops, and condos, as well as over 100,000 commercial buildings. And you've got the Citizens Budget Commission estimating that that would amount to some $700 more a year in taxes for the typical owner of a 1, 2, or 3 family home. And then actually in addition to that, the city would dip into its cash reserves and pull out nearly $1 billion for the next fiscal year alone. So that's why you have Mamdani saying it's that first path, the income tax path, that'll provide long-term stability, while the second path, the property tax path, is a last resort that he deeply hopes to avoid because it would cause significant pain. Right? But because the first path is completely out of his hands, the state has to approve it, he's proposing a budget in the meantime that's based on the second path. A budget that would spend $122 billion for fiscal year 2026 and $127 billion for 2027.
This preliminary budget increases city expenses by over $14 billion, expenses that we have to fund because the Adams administration failed to. Of $14 billion, only $576 million is going to deliver new programmatic spending.
Now with all this is where we kind of delve into the world of opinion. You may have noticed from the clips that I've shown you that he seems like he's opting for a governing style of complete and total transparency, or whether or not you think he's actually being transparent, he does present himself that way, like, hey, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. There are a lot of problems. These are the solutions, or these are the best and worst case scenarios. But still, you had one reporter asking, what you would say to supporters who might feel betrayed, saying you ran an uncompromising platform of making the city more affordable for working people, though in his defense, you had Mamdani saying like, hey, I'm doing everything possible with the tools at my disposal inside of the bounds of the law. And that includes going on a pressure campaign against the state government to force it down the first pass so that he doesn't have to take the second. Which on that note, there's actually a Tax the Rich rally that's happening next week in Albany, though Mamdani has reportedly told allies that he doesn't plan to attend. And all the while, like a big aspect of this is that Kathy Hochul's up for re-election this year, so she's facing a ton of political pressure from multiple directions to make the right calculation. But as far as the math there, Mamdani has already endorsed her and he's so far avoided antagonizing her. Or you see him frequently thanking her for her cooperation, and then also at the same time, he's gonna have to negotiate with the city council, whose Democratic Speaker Julie Menon said, at a time when New Yorkers are already grappling with an affordability crisis, dipping into rainy day reserves and proposing significant property tax increases should not be on the table whatsoever. The council believes that there are additional areas of savings and revenue that deserve careful scrutiny before increasing the burden on small property owners and neighborhood small businesses. And then also, at the same time, you have other critics arguing that Mamdani's two paths are actually just a false choice, saying that there is a third option, cut expenses from the budget. And actually in response to to that, you had Mamdani saying that they've already come up with an aggressive savings plan, but if they cut any further, it's going to severely impact city services. But for now, we're going to have to keep our eyes on this and see how it plays out, because they have until June 30th to agree on a budget. And actually with that, well, not guaranteed, it's possible that other options are going to surface in that time, where, for example, if Wall Street gains push projected revenues up even further than expected. But also, if nothing budges and Mamdani goes with the second path, many property owners could find themselves squeezed at both ends, right? Because not only would they have to pay more in property taxes, they might also make less in revenue thanks to the partial rent freeze that Mamdani wants, right? And that looks like it might be a reality soon, because you had the Gothamist reporting that Mamdani is about to appoint 5 new members to the 9-member Rent Guidelines Board, including the board chair, and reappoint 1, giving him a majority. And so when they hold their annual vote on how much rent-stabilized apartment owners can legally raise their rents, the answer may be a simple 0, which actually is something that's happened before, 3 times in fact, under former Mayor Bill de Blasio. But it is also still a hotly debated topic, with one side warning that landlords need to raise rents to keep up with rising costs, and the other side countering that the data shows that most affected landlords are doing just fine, and the people who really need help are the poor tenants. And actually, something you saw with this is that Eric Adams tried to just short-circuit that debate by stocking the board with his own picks right before leaving the office to hamstring Mamdani. But unfortunately for Mamdani, 2 of his appointees withdrew. So now we could see the 4 consecutive rent freezes that he promised for his first term, knocking out yet another one of his core campaign pledges. Because he already got Hochul on board with a nearly $1.5 billion childcare expansion last month, though it's only 2 years, so he's going to have to figure out how to make it permanent after that. And that then leaves a few big boxes to check off: free buses, city-run grocery stores, and 200,000 new affordable homes. And so, with lots and lots at play here, of course, yes, I want to know everyone's opinion, but if you live in New York, I would really love to know your thoughts on what we're seeing play out here.